started. I want to thank everybody for being here. And right now, I'm going to call on our chairman, Mr. Carmichael, to lead us through.
Let's just be thankful together. Heavenly Father, we just pause gratefully and appreciatively to you for all the new blessings of life that we do have for our families, our kids, our parents, just the leaders of the county and the law enforcement folks in this county that do so much. I thank you for just the attitude in Paulding County of friendship and just being more laid back. And as we talk about the excitement of this airport and new things that are going on, maybe just being indwelt by your wisdom and your decision-making turn towards you and everything. Pray these things in Christ's name. Amen.
Amen. And before we get to the next thing on the agenda, I will tell you, Terry, I look at it and I really do like seeing all the aircraft sitting around here. And I know that some of them are probably transient. They're probably from somewhere else. But one day, we will have them all out here for ourselves and they'll be housed here. All right, with that, we'll get started. All of you have got a copy or had a copy sent to you of the minutes from our last meeting. Do I have a motion to approve those minutes?
Motion to approve.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay, motion is approved. Okay, the financial statements, they were also sent to you in your packet earlier. Has anybody got any comments on the financial statement? All right, I will entertain a motion to approve those.
So moved.
All right, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
All right, and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
No opposed? All right, they are approved. Okay, Terry, we'll go to the director's report.
All right. Christine sends her apologies. She had a doctor's appointment this morning that she couldn't miss, so she will not be with us today. What I wanted to do is just pause for a few minutes and reflect back on the year. This has been just an amazing year, and I think when you're down in the day-to-day grindstone of doing what we do out here every day, and y'all as a part of the board participating in a lot of these things, many of these things, I think we tend to forget from month to month what we accomplished. So what I decided to do is real briefly go over month by month what we accomplished during this FY so that we can just take a minute and enjoy the success that we've had here at the airport this year and look forward to things that are going to continue to come our way with hard work and effort, a little bit of money from the Board of Commissioners, and a lot of support from y'all. In July, we received a $75,000 loan from EDO. Y'all will remember that. That's what allowed us to complete the build-out of the business center over in Hangar 1. I'll say more about that as we go forward. But more significantly than that, on the 29th day of June, we finally received the official FAA approval for the release of the 2.9 acres, which is now leading to the construction of the Chattahoochee Tech A&P School. I mean, it's been 2.5 years, I guess, since we first heard of the Governor Deal at that time intention to bring an A&P school to Paulding County. And I like to say that we all move at the pace of government. Sometimes that's not as fast as we would like it to be. But progress, if you stay with it, eventually comes. And this is a great example of it. A lot of people in this room have done a lot of work. Chairman Carmichael, you in particular. The trip to Washington, the tireless conversations with our state delegation have resulted in what is going to be one of the biggest things, I believe, for aviation, this airport, and the county in general in our decade. It's just a wonderful thing that's coming. So we got that moving. In August, we opened the 24/7 Pilots Lounge. I had no idea at the time that we opened it what the biggest impact of that would be. Here's what the biggest impact of having a 24/7 Pilots Lounge has been to the Paulding County Airport. That is the only restroom available to our law enforcement staff between the Watson building and the county line at 2 a.m. And so we get a lot of patrols here now at night, which especially while we've got some real expensive airplanes parked out here, has been a very good thing. It was funny, one of the principals at Cartersville contacted Sheriff Gullidge and said, is there any way we could get an extra patrol or two at night out there at the airport? We got a lot of airplanes parked out there, no problem. So that 24/7 Pilots Lounge has paid for itself in security alone, and we're very appreciative to our law enforcement for the extra effort that they give us to keep an eye on things out here in the west side of Paulding County in general. This is a very quiet area out here, and we appreciate that that support that we get from our partners in law enforcement. In September, we received the occupancy permit, the certificate of occupancy for the business center, over 5,000 square feet of new space that was brought online at the airport and almost immediately filled. Flying Tigers moved over there and expanded their operation and doubled their rent, coincidentally, to the airport as a result of that, taking on that space. The Museum of Flight moved in and stood up their operations. Georgia DBE, a small business, moved in over there. So it immediately made the business center profitable for us, even though we're paying back this 5-year note. You know, anytime you can make enough on whatever your investment is to cover your operating expenses and your financing in business, you know, that's usually a pretty successful position to be in. So that business center is paying for itself, and it's leading to real economic development here at the airport. In October, we said goodbye to the Paulding Jet Center, who ended their 10-year contract arrangement with us, running a contract FBO. We were happy to have them here when they were here, but in October, we took over all of the FBO functions. We have hired staff, we have trained the staff, we have purchased equipment, we have leased some of the equipment that we have. The fuel trucks are leased, for example. We had to go through the process of selecting Perry Brothers as our supplier of fuel. We have been very satisfied with them. What a great customer service focus that they have on all of their customers. But they seem to like us, and we like that. So just a great partnership going there. In November, we hosted the Hearts for Heroes. Remember that? Chamber of Commerce event, probably the largest outside event for the year, for the COVID year, don't you think, Stacy? Very successful event that we had here. We also had a presidential election. Had over 900, close to 1,000 people voted in person here at the airport, many of whom made comments as they were going through the voting lines that this is the first time they had been to the airport. I mean, these are people who live in Yorkville. They are our community. This is their voting precinct now, you know, as a result of some shifts around in the government, local government here, moving some polling places. And so it gave them a reason to come to the airport for the first time. And I think a lot of people had their eyes open to what a beautiful gym we have right in their backyard. So that was very good for us. December. A big event in December was that the airport contributed over $500,000 in ad valorem tax, 2/3 of which goes to the school system. And as best I can calculate, the airport generates 0 students added to the population of schools in Paulding County. So just basically a gift to the students of Paulding County that is going to help foster education in our community for years to come. We also published our 5-year plan, our 5-year CIP. This is a requirement every year of the FAA. But up until this year, we had either been fighting as co-sponsors between the Board of Commissioners and the Paulding County Airport Authority, or we had been broke because of all the litigation. We were kind of rudderless, not quite knowing what direction the airport was going to move in. And we finally got that ship stabilized. And so we now have, there was a lot of effort put into this 5-year plan. Y'all remember that we had a public hearing on it. The Board of Commissioners voted on it. You voted on it. The FAA has approved it. GDOT has approved it. And we're now finally seeing funding begin to flow against that 5-year plan. And so we're now in a position where this county, I believe, has come together around a unified vision of what this airport means to the county today and what it can mean in the future, and how to make the best out of the investments that are available to us through the state and federal programs that support airports in America. So that was the big event for December. In January, I have joked that Scott Green made the mistake of tossing me the keys to the county forest mulcher. That may not sound like a whole lot to y'all, but to me it was a pretty big deal, because in our previous inspection, we had been cited as some of our quick growth pine trees, regenerative pine trees we call them, around the airfield had begun to penetrate the Part 77 surface. That is a very difficult thing to keep your hands on. It's something that we focus a lot of maintenance attention to. Y'all don't see it usually, but there's a lot of attention paid to making sure that those pine trees stay below that Part 77 surface. And it varies, of course, the further you get away from the center line, but it starts at 18 inches, okay? So out here in the infields, I've got about 18 inches to play with, and when it starts getting beyond that, the inspectors start looking at us and say, your grass is getting too high. Or, you know, if it's a 10-foot pine tree out here on the end, they say that pine tree is beginning to penetrate your Part 77 surface. Here's why you care and why it's important to you. If you have a safety concern that you can address with a project, GDOT will not give you a grant to do anything other than address your safety concerns. We're in a position now, as I just mentioned, where we have a 5-year plan to move this airport forward. We can't get funding for that if we have safety issues that we must first take care of. So we had to get rid of those trees in order to bring us back in compliance with airport design specifications, in order to obtain the $350,000 grant that we just received. So it had that kind of attention at GDOT, and when I was able to send that email note to Tracy Klein, our program manager at GDOT, and say, okay, we are now in compliance with your last safety finding from our most recent inspection, she said, okay, good, we can proceed with the grant. So it is a big deal, and hats off to Scott Green for making that possible. I don't know if he'll ever loan it to me again. He had to come kind of pry it out of my fingers once I had it out here. We really got a lot of good work out of that. February saw us have another visit from Ozarks. Here's why that's kind of a big deal for us. We wound up actually with 2 filming events from Ozarks this year, and unfortunately that was season 4 in the final season for them. So we won't see them again, but we've made some good contacts in that industry and hope that there will be other opportunities going forward. But up until October, the Paulden Jet Center held the lease on the airfield, which gave them the rights to a lot of the proceeds from those filming events. Now that we run the FBO, we get all of that money. We made $50,000 this year on outside filming events. That 100% of it stayed with the airport, and so that allowed us to cover our startup expenses for standing up the FBO, and we're a not-for-profit, but in the sense that we're making enough money to cover our expenses, that made us profitable for the year, that one activity of filming with them. Okay, so that got us to March. In March, we focused on our 5-year master agreement. Our contract was expiring with Holt. We had to go out and issue a new bid. So we had the whole bid process, the bid evaluation, the selection, and selected Holt again as our engineer of record for the next 5 years. We also published our DBE, our Disadvantaged Business Enterprise Plan, which is now published both on our website and the Paulding County Paulding.gov website, which is a federal requirement. If you're spending federal dollars, you have to have a proactive plan for how you're assisting in spreading the federal dollars, if you will, to disadvantaged businesses. So this is our contribution to that, and we're very proud to have that operational, and that plan is in place moving forward. In April, Ozark came for the second time. That was the second of those two visits that I talked about. We also had the museum gala here. The reason that was significant, that was essentially coincided with the beginning of the opening from the COVID era. That was the first event that was no longer restricted to all of the, the distance and the mask and so forth. And they had 201 people here that night, counting staff and caterers. And it was the first event of that size that we have hosted inside in this facility in about a year. And it felt really good to essentially have a grand opening, if you will, and such a positive event that was. Those of you who came, you remember they had the F-14 tucked in at the door right here. So you walk in the main door and you're looking at an F-14 that almost looks like it's in the lobby with you. That was a pretty spectacular sight. So we were very happy to host that. Then we come to May. In May, Governor Kemp signed the state budget with the $26 million in it for the A&P school. So if the FAA land release wasn't big enough for us during the FY, now we've got a fully funded program for Chattahoochee Tech moving forward. And you don't see anything yet. You don't see dirt moving out there. You don't see a building coming out of the ground. But buildings of this size, 60, 70,000 square feet with a large hangar built integrally into it, they don't happen overnight. Years of planning and architectural studies and engineering studies go into projects of this sort. And Croft and Associates, an architectural firm, has been working now for about a year on that project. And very soon, I think you're going to begin to see actual dirt flying. And it is going to be really exciting around here when we see that project begin to come together and come online. So that was a big deal for us. Later that month, we hosted the Chamber Gala. Stacy, you had how many? 270? Ish people, plus staff and caterers. At that, you were probably pushing 300 people in the building for that facility, fully open, fully, COVID essentially being behind us as far as events like that are concerned. Just a wonderful, wonderful, wonderful event, and very glad, thankful that you let us be a part of that, and just a great thing. Similarly, East Paulding High School had their prom here. First prom that I had been to, I didn't come, but would have been in a day or two. And so the fact that we were able to provide this building for one of our local high school proms was quite an honor for us. I mean, venues are just now really beginning to come back online, and they were struggling trying to find a place, I think, that could host that event. And so right here at the airport, those kids developed some memories that they'll keep for a very long time. We received our FY21 grant in May. That's huge for us because this is almost all, in fact it is, all development money. These are planning and engineering studies that are going to be done to install or design for the install of the sewer, the road extension, the taxiways for the 4 new T-hangars. And it's just really going to move this airport forward in a big way when we see those construction projects start to come online. Also in May, we signed the new, or approved the new intergovernmental agreement between the two co-sponsors, cementing the relationship, showing the harmony that we have between the co-sponsors, and guaranteeing stability for the next 2 years, which is the duration now of these IGAs that we've been using for the past little bit here. And just really says a lot, I think, for how far the county has come from the old days of the fighting and the lawsuits and everything else around this airport to now having an agreement that we all happily endorse and are working towards on how we're going to fund this airport, how we're going to move it forward, and basically how we're going to manage this asset. And finally, in June, all you have to know about June is look out the window. Cartersville is closed for paving. So for the entire, really it started about mid-May with the air ambulances coming over. And now we have pretty much the entire stock from Cartersville co-located with us here. We're the closest airport to Cartersville. And Phoenix Air's plan had been, they were going to bring all the big planes. You look out and you see 4 or 5 big jets out here, and then you see a whole bunch of Lears, smaller airplanes, in the citation right here at the front door. They were going to take all of those to Rome. Once they started coming here with the air ambulances, the air crews went back and reported, there's no reason to go to Rome. Paulding's got everything we need. They're closer. And so it just made sense. And so they changed their plan, and they brought everything. Their entire fleet is here now. And we've been busy. We're getting up really early in the morning. We're staying up late at night a few nights because these ambulances are 24/7. So our small staff right now is effectively on call 24/7 for this month to make sure we're meeting the needs of this fleet that's here. But just been great training for us, great experience for us, and has generated fuel sales that are eye-watering, and it gives us a glimpse of what the future is going to look like. It's been a good year, y'all.
Thank you, Terry. It does sound like we've had a very busy year, and I've got to believe that now that we're working our way out of COVID, that we're going to see more and more activities like the prom or some other social events. I think we're going to see more and more of that here, and I think that's very good. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Any comments from Terry or for Terry or anything?
I got a couple of questions, Terry. Great that we had the events and opened in the reduction of COVID. Are we going to see the reduction of social distancing in our own meetings? Okay.
That's y'all's call. We sort of got used to this format. If y'all are comfortable going back to the more intimate setting that we had enjoyed pre-COVID, then next month we'll do that. Is that the will of the group? Don't need a vote, just is everybody comfortable with that?
I'd be comfortable with it.
Depends on who I'm sitting
I
beside.
think it would be, yeah.
Okay, all right.
If I can come to these galas and not be social distance, then I can
All
come
right.
to these. and not
Randy
be
does
social
all the
distance.
room set up for us, so he's sitting in the back. He'll take
Yeah.
care of it next month.
That'll save you about 5 tables there, Randy. The other question I had for you real fast was, you mentioned the filming, and then we made some context on that. Do we have anybody who's actively marketing us within the
You
film?
really don't market that industry per se. There are very unique scenes that are suited for an airport, outdoor airport, and we are now well known in the local area. There are only us and about 2 other airports that are doing active filming right now. So there's really not marketing per se that you do to that. You also want to be very careful because the FAA, we walk a very tight line with the FAA about using an airfield for anything other than an airfield.
Right.
And so Ozarks was a perfect fit for us because it was aviation-centric filming. They brought in a big jet that our hero was, always kidnapping people and putting on and so forth. And so that made it a natural fit. We don't want to use this airfield for drag racing and ambulance chases and those kind of things. And we get calls for that routinely because it is a nice 1 mile straightaway that you could do some interesting things on. We are off limits for that kind of filming. So it's a very niche market for us. So to answer your question, no, we don't really market per se, but we're out there, we're known, and we're contacted when one of these production companies wants to do that. And let me say that Swirl Films, who's the owner now of the Atlanta Film Studio, they have been here several times, and they are our local production facility, and they typically use inside the building here. They're not doing a whole lot of outside filming that we would be well suited for, but they're very familiar with us. We know them, and so when they have needs, we talk.
And then our tourism director at the chamber now is the film liaison contact with the
True.
county.
Yep.
And so she has record of just all the uses. So if someone called inquiring specifically about an airport, obviously, it would be deferred.
Right.
And she's got those contacts at the state.
I was just asking on the proactive side, leaning forward instead of waiting for a call to come in. Are we in the state of Georgia's database as a location?
I'm sure we are, but I don't know. That would be a
Yeah.
calling question.
I've got last full measure out in the truck that Terry loaned me, Vietnam, the movie, filmed here. I'll give it to you before we leave. I think
If anybody hasn't seen that, that's a very good movie, and that was very heavily based here. I think we had 5 or 6 different scenes in that movie. They were here for weeks and just really showcased this airport.
True story too.
Yep.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, and we don't have anything, nobody's talked about Christine's activity. Okay, we'll move on to the next item, and that is the FY '22 budget, operation and maintenance budget. Here, you wanna talk about that?
Well, I've sent y'all a spreadsheet. Did you pass it out? Yeah, I see y'all got it. I can cheat, mine's color coded, which helps, but the 3 columns that you're looking at there, the first column is the proposed FY '22 budget. That's what we have to discuss and hopefully approve today, as contrasted with the approved budget that you approved last year that we operated against, and our estimated actual expenses. And I sent y'all a long explanation about the fact that we're still in the FY. We're close to the end, but not quite there. We haven't done all of our year-end accounting, closeout kinds of things, but you can get a very good feel for where we are. Now, I don't go down into the weeds of like insurance, just to pick on that one. Insurance, now that we are in FBO, we have operators insurance, hangar keepers insurance, crew car insurance. What else have we got, Yolanda? There's like 4 or 5 different insurance packages that goes along with our ACCG insurance. I mean, managing our risk and our insurance package here is a very detailed set of portfolio of projects. And I don't think y'all want to get down into the weeds of that. If you do, we're certainly prepared to do that and happy to do it. But that's just an example of, I've rolled all of that up and said insurance, okay? And then based on our insurance costs for this year, that's what I'm projecting for next year. And then in the explanation that I sent you, remember that we had 9 months of operation of the FBO, so we only paid 9 months of those FBO-related insurance packages. So you've got to project that over a 12-month year. And so that's why it's a little more for the year coming up than what we saw in FY21. So with that as a background, I think probably the best thing to do is just open it up to discussion. And what kind of questions have y'all got for me concerning the numbers that you see before you?
Okay. Do we have any questions, comments, or anything?
I'm curious about this Clark Creek path repair at our rental property, at the airport's rental property. Is that a driveway or something?
No. So those of you who haven't been out there, that's a 4-bedroom, fairly large house that we rent, have rented ever since the airport opened. It came to us as part of the assemblage of the property. It's not that we're out acquiring rental property, but that particular parcel of land had a house on it. We didn't tear it down. We're renting it out to generate income for the airport. It's right off the end of the runway. I mean, literally, it's in the flight path of the planes taking off and departing. And the repairs are just the normal repairs. We haven't put a roof on it, but if we had to put a roof on it, that would be, maintenance and repairs, those kind of things. And so every year we wind up spending $2,000, $3,000 or so maintaining that property. So it may be the driveway. This year we did there was some rotted wood around, like some of the windows and the railings and things that we just replaced. So it's that kind of maintenance. Same kind of thing that you would do at your house.
Thank you.
If I can go on that, that was a great segue, I guess, maybe to the question I was going to have.
Okay.
When was the last time we raised the rent on that house?
We raise the rent typically when we get a new tenant. So we have not raised the rent on this tenant. They've been there 24 months or so.
At that rate, they'll probably never leave.
Well, they may not.
Okay, being in this market, we're probably about $1,500 under what we could probably get for that property.
It may be so, but remember, you're right at the end of a runway too.
I'm keeping all that in
Okay,
mind.
okay.
Okay?
We're not in this for making money on the rental property per se. We're just trying to maintain an asset that we've got out there. So, yeah, we may be able to get a few more dollars on it, but in the overall scheme of things, when you take into consideration all of the things about the property and where we are, location-wise, I don't know, I think we're about right.
I would disagree.
Okay.
We're well under on that one.
Okay,
We're losing money on that, guys.
Okay.
Especially when we look at that, we're bringing in 15,000 for the year of it, and we're putting out 3,000 in expenses. We're only bringing in $1,000 a month. That market is actually probably closer to $2,500 a month
Okay.
property.
so noted.
Does the tenant notify us on any issues they see, or do we have
So,
someone go by there or look
So
at
we
it?
pay Parkside Realty a commission to manage that property for us. We don't actually ever touch that property.
Okay.
And so Ruth Huggins, who owns that company, is the manager for the property, and she takes care of all of that.
How much of a commission are we paying the park?
I think we pay her 10%. Yeah, I think it's 10%.
So even more of our money, so now
No, this is net. This is net to us.
the net is 1,500 to 15,000 gross?
The net to us, typically, if there are no repairs that month, is like 15, 16, you know the exact number?
The check they write us is $13.50.
$13.50, okay, and that takes out her, so that's how you get to the 15,000 per year.
I was just gonna ask, I'm looking at your proposed budget, and from the actuals, the real increase of 22 over actual is basically going to 12 months versus the 9 months?
You're talking about the difference between the 472 at the bottom and the
Well,
609?
it's really 520 projected on the actual
Oh,
to 609.
yeah, that's primarily because we only ran the FBO for 3 of the 12, or for 9 of the 12 months, yes.
So the real increase there is
It's
increasing
reflecting,
the,
well, there have been some increase in cost. Our labor costs, for example, are going up just like everybody else's. So there's all kinds of inflation, utilities, everything filters into that. But the biggest component of that is the fact that we're running the FBO for 12 months, not 9.
as opposed to 9.
Right.
All right, any other comments?
Are any of these items on the entire sheet, I guess, fall in the FAA reimbursable? I know we get the 150 grand.
No, O&M is not reimbursable. So only your capital improvements, and in the notes, I told you that I do not include the grants and the capital construction projects in the budget. This is your O&M budget. So the grants are at the whim of the FAA and GDOT, so we manage that separately. And you approve, let me say that, it's not that you don't get a chance to approve what we're doing on the grant spending, and it's not that we're not managing it. You just vote on each of those activities as separate events rather than including that in your O&M budget.
Jerry, the government funding is 425,
That's from the Board of Commissioners.
okay, and that's done, right?
That's done. Yeah, we've got the intergovernmental agreement for the next 2 years approved. So that's a contractual agreement between the two co-sponsors.
Okay, I will entertain a motion to approve the FY 22 O&M budget. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
And a second, all in favor? Say aye. Any opposed? Okay, it is passed, okay. Next is the FY 21 and 22 operational system understanding. That is what you sent us.
Right.
Which as I understand it, is basically telling everybody how you do everything that you're supposed to do.
That's exactly right. So I think there was some confusion in what this memo is intended to do and represent. This is not where we change what we do. This is where we communicate to the auditors what we do. And one of their requirements is that they want to know that you've approved what we do. So this is how we communicate that to them. And the example that I used in the email was that if you want to change the process that we're following to sign checks, for example, we're free to do that any time of the year. What we can't do is tell the auditors, we don't like that system, we're going to use this system, if that's the system we've been using all year. Because that's what they're going to audit us against. So they literally are pulling checks, looking to make sure that every signature on there is also listed on the signature sheet over at Westside Bank. Make sure that they tie to an invoice that I have approved, that they're distributed in accordance with what we said in here. It's that kind of memo. Does that make sense? Okay.
Are these state auditors?
No, these are private auditors auditing to federal regulations. So every government entity that is taking federal dollars goes through this every year. The IBA does it, Albany County government does it, the school system does it. So this is just part of, if you're going to spend federal dollars, you're going to be audited at the end of the year. It's that process.
All right, I understand the need for the audit. Where I come from, though, I like to keep things very, very, very simple,
Okay.
mostly for me. But is it a requirement that we sign and approve this system understanding document every year, or have it on file? If
Okay,
we're not
so-
changing it, can it be on file, or does it have to be approved every year?
It does not have to be approved if there are no changes. You did not approve it last year because we made no changes. This year, we have significant change in our business model because of taking on the FBO functions that affected some of our processes. And so therefore, I thought it was a good idea. Here's what you don't want to have happen. You don't want to have the auditors have a finding that you're doing something that you didn't tell them you were doing. You don't want them to go find things that weren't documented. And so there are no guidelines for this document. It's really based on years of experience of having gone through these. I was involved in these at Georgia Tech for 40 years. And so every auditor is different. What they look for is different. Where their focus is different. You're trying to kind of play gamesmanship with them and try to get to the point where you have zero findings. And so this is my effort to communicate to them what our key financial processes that I know they're going to be looking at every year are, to make their job easier and therefore hopefully make our results better.
Well, I read through it several times, and I felt it was a very good explanation of all of the activities that you and your staff are required to do.
And that is exactly
Or
what
do
is
in
intended
the
to do.
in the running of this business, is
Right.
what I'll call it.
Right, that is exactly the intent. Place yourself in the auditor's position. You know, the auditor comes in and they've got to decide, are we being good stewards of the federal money that is passing through our business operations here? And the first question they're going to ask is, what are your processes? And that's what this communicates to them.
If I had to make one change on it, I would take Yolanda's name out of, you see the number 3, 4, one of them in there? Just because it ties it down to you.
Yeah.
Not that you're not doing it, but it ties it down to you.
I will make that change.
And
That's a
that
good
I
point.
would take out. I would take out anything
I'll
personal.
just say, and also I'm inconsistent in here. Some places I say assistant to the director, which is her official title, and in some places I say administrative assistant, which was the old title we used. I need to go back and change all of those to be assistant to the director, which is her title. I'll make that correction.
Harold, I would also add on that same lines, in where I believe there's a couple of instances where we used a specific company that we might be using for something. is not to necessarily call out the specific company. It's just that, hey, the service, yeah, and I think Posey was called out.
Posey we need to call out specifically because that's who they interface with. So they need to know,
So if we get rid of Posey, then we have to go back and change
we
the
would,
document.
that's,
Instead of
that would
just-
take a vote.
Instead of just simply saying the accounting firm?
Right, because I don't have the authority to go change accounting firms. That would be y'all's choice, so that would be a vote.
But what I'm saying is, so if we change an accounting firm, we then have to change this memo.
At the next audit, yes. At the next audit.
Okay, any other comments? Okay, pending those changes, do we have a motion? We can approve it without. we know
You can approve it with those changes.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion to approve the FY 21 and 22 operational system understanding. Do we have a motion?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
And a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All, any opposed? Okay, it's approved. Okay. Now, well, this is the easiest one, we need no explanation. I'll entertain a motion to enter into closed session for the purpose of litigation, discussing litigation in real estate. Do I have a motion?
Make a motion that we go to closed session for litigation and real estate.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
And a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we will be out for a few minutes or whatever. Okay, we are back in session now, and I will report that nothing was voted on that was in the closed session. So now, are there any comments or questions? Hearing none, need a motion for adjournment. Nobody wants to leave?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, you're gonna stay here then.